Welcome to the Get in the Fight podcast. My name is Nate Whitson, and I'm the founder of Get in the Fight Ministries and our exclusive online fight club for Christian men. Everything we do here is dedicated to helping Christian men become the men that God meant for them to be. So if you're looking for helpful content and conversations that can help you to grow and become the man that God made you to be, then you're in the right place. But before we get started, please do me a huge favor and be sure to subscribe, click the like button, and then leave us a 5-star review. Doing that helps us to reach more men who are looking for content just like this. Also, if you'd like to learn more about our mission and how to get involved or how to join the Fight Club, then head on over to getinthefight.club. That's getinthefight.club and learn more today. But without further ado, it's time to get in the fight. Let's go. Hey guys, welcome to the Get in the Fight podcast. I'm your host, Nate Whitson. Thanks for listening today. This is a show that is really geared towards Christian men, helping Christian men become the men that God meant for them to be. We discuss all kinds of conversations geared around that idea of fulfilling our purpose in Christ. What does that mean to live life to the fullest? What does that look like? How do we do that? How do we become better men and better followers of Jesus? And I'm really excited for today's conversation. I think it's going to be one that'll stir you up, that'll really challenge you and make you think. I think it's one that maybe is a conversation that you haven't thought of. And if you have, I'll be really curious to hear your thoughts. So if you get a chance, make sure you subscribe to our channel, a YouTube channel, comment, let us know what you think of today's show. And if you like it, if you think this is a conversation that other men need to hear, do us a favor and just share that maybe in your social media or just share it directly with the guy that you think needs to hear that. But today, I just want to read a little bio here of our guest, Paul Coughlin. Paul is not only an accomplished author, but he's a dynamic speaker. He's founder of a group called The Protectors, a faith-based organization that's dedicated to combating bullying in schools and communities. His insights have been featured in major media outlets, including the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the Wall Street Journal. He has a background in journalism and is passionate about empowering men to live courageous and authentic lives. And he brings a ton of wisdom and just practical advice. And I'm so happy to have him on the show. So Paul, privileged to have you. Thanks for coming on and joining us today.
Oh, great to be with you, Nate. Thank you.
Yeah. Did I miss anything there? That's quite a bio.
Oh, I don't think you missed much. No, you're good. I was a boys varsity soccer coach and been on the board of directors for a private school, and just I've had an interesting life.
Yeah, that's great. I hope that we'll get into just a little bit of that here. But what I thought for our audience we would do, and in fact, if you're watching the show, you can kind of see I'm going to hold up Paul's book here, No More Christian Nice Guy. I'll give links to that. Highly encourage you to check that out and get Paul's book. But I just want to jump right into it and have you define for us, what does this mean, first of all, a Christian nice guy in your estimation? What does that mean?
Yeah. So we have to define terms, right?
Yeah.
Niceness is often mistaken for kindness, and they're really not the same thing. In fact, niceness is almost always a knee-jerk response to people pleasing. And the difficulty we have, I think, particularly in church, is one of the greatest compliments you can give someone is that they're the nicest person you've ever met.
Right.
Well, if that means kindness, well, that's great. But if it means niceness, watch out because they won't be very good friends. They don't know how to stand up in tough times. And they don't know how to stand by you in tough times as well. And they don't know how to stand up for their family and themselves. So, but unfortunately, you get a lot of attaboys. There's a lot of compliments for being a nice person where you just acquiesce regularly to other people, to their demands, and you don't really exert your will. And then you receive a pretty tough message sometimes in church that to actually extend your will, to go into some degree of conflict is always bad and always wrong. And this simply isn't true. It's not found in the Bible, and it certainly isn't found in the life of Jesus. But we have now given men a pretty, a neutered view of who Jesus really was and how he behaved and how we are expected to behave as well.
Yeah. I think that's really interesting. You mentioned that in our community here, we do Devos live each day at 6 a.m. online. It's an online community, and our fight club does Devos together. And one of the things that we're noticing as we read through the gospel, I think, is that Jesus isn't always very nice. In fact, he's very shocking. I think he would be very shocking to us today. Like, what are some ways that you think we have like misinterpreted the niceness of Jesus?
Wow. I mean, we could spend the entire
Yeah.
time on that. I think what it does is that the real Jesus is really not all that tame. And I think many of us have come to the faith to receive some degree of certainty and security and comfort. And of course, all those things should be true. But I think it's inordinate. I think that's all we came for. And
Mm,
then if you were to just read one of the gospels, I think the Gospel of Mark is probably the easiest to ascertain. It's very straightforward. It's like Hemingway wrote it. It's just very,
yes.
condensed. And ask yourself a fundamental question in reading even the first three chapters. Is Jesus a nice guy? You cannot conclude that he's a nice guy. You can conclude that he is a person on a mission, and he is out to create some powerful change clearly in a short period of time. And we only have roughly 3 years of his adult life that we know about. And I remember when I used to really believe in the nice guy Jesus, I would think, well, how do we only have 3 years of him to
Right.
learn from? And then when you see the real Jesus, at least I came to the conclusion, how did he last 3 years? I mean, is
Yeah.
conflict from beginning to end. And it's not, jerk conflict.
Hmm.
It is, there's something wrong with us. And we need to change for our own good, for our own lives here on earth and everlasting. And so, and another, so he's just very shocking to prove a point, to grab his audience, not to show off. I call it it's redemptive conflict that we have with him. And then I would say too, another thing that's really shocking about him is I think it was Martin Luther King, and he was probably quoting a French philosopher. He said, "Good people have antithesis strongly marked."
Mm,
Which is to say that we often think that a good person is really only one way, when in reality, we see with Jesus is that he can be incredibly tender when
mhm,
people are hard-hearted, and he can be incredibly courageous and brave when others are cowards. And so we have in him this spectrum, and they don't cancel each other out. They complete one another.
mhm,
I'm reminded of the Irish proverb that says, "Don't trust a warrior who can't cry." You got to have the fighting side, and you have to have the tender side. And really, it's what we should see as integrity.
mm,
Integrity isn't just avoiding sin. Integrity means that we are whole. So, for example, you're in a building, and if the foundation is unequal, we would say it lacks structural integrity. There's something, it's out of balance. Something's going to happen bad. Well, same thing with our lives, right? Is we have been encouraged to be too much innocence of doves and not enough wisdom of serpents. I
mhm,
can I can remember a lot of sermons on what it means to be innocent as a dove. I have yet to hear one sermon of what it means to be wise as a serpent. Now, that's telling
mm,
because that's the NGB, the nice guy Bible. And it's not, we're not as honest as a Thomas Jefferson, for example, who didn't believe in the miracles, so we cut him out. But we do something very similar. When we come across the scriptures that are tough, um, we just don't emphasize them. We don't cut them out, but we
mhm,
certainly don't study them.
mhm.
And so I want to go back to when he sent the disciples out in two. He sent them out initially one by one, and then he changes it to two. And again, he says those really ominous words, right? To be innocent as doves, wise or shrewd as serpents. And he never said one aspect was more important than the other, right? But we do.
Yeah.
We believe the innocence of doves is far more important than the shrewdness of a serpent. And because of that, we're out of balance. We lack
Mhm.
integrity. And I think as men, we lack leadership. We lack an innate power that we really need in order to provide, in order to deeply love, in order to change our communities.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much there. That's great. Yeah, it's interesting that I think courage, seeing it as not mean but courageous is really on point, because to stand up in that community to the religious leaders, to the Pharisees, they were really the centerpiece of the community. When they would walk through, people would, I don't know that they would bow to them, but they would respect them, and they were the elders and the decision makers and all of that. So to stand up to them, the crowd must have watched him like with just great fascination, I would imagine, right? And just think, who is this guy to stand up like this? It was courage, not just, I think you said redemptive, right? In how he did. I think you're right on.
Yeah, yeah, they are shocked by the way that he spoke and what he did, and then in regard to conflict, you just reminded me of the man with the withered hand.
Mhm.
The man with the withered hand, it's obviously during the Sabbath, and they want to see if Jesus is going to heal him on the Sabbath. And his words are frankly so cutting, and they're cutting in order to take the heavy garments that class of people put on other people. These rules, the Sabbath was meant to serve men, not the other way around.
Mhm.
And it certainly served their social and economic desires as well. Well, anyway, it's larger than that. I'm no scholar on these things, but the man with the withered hand, it had been withered most likely for a long time. And commentators say it was probably his right hand. And that is telling because that's how most people made a living, was by using their hands. So this guy has been down and out for a long time. It's coming toward the end of the Sabbath. Now, honestly, what's another day? What's another day? But Jesus knows the score, and he pulls the man with the withered hand in front of everyone. He doesn't heal him
Mhm.
secretly. He wants everyone to see that he healed this man on the Sabbath.
Yep.
He knew the conflict that would create, because we know later on they want to kill him even the more.
Mhm.
He made him look silly. He made him look dumb. For example, look at Pilate, for example. He says to Pilate, "Are those your words, or did someone give them to you?"
Right. Right.
Those are fighting words.
Absolutely.
What he is saying to Pilate, he's like, "I know this is the charade. I know, and you're part of it, and
Mhm.
I know it." In fact, one time he didn't answer Pilate.
Right.
And you know that to not answer Pilate was a capital offense. You could have been killed right then and there. So he was mighty disrespectful, but in a redemptive, orthodox way. It's love. It doesn't, Pilate probably didn't feel it felt
Mhm.
like love at the time, but it's love. He's out to set us free.
So good. So let's answer the question of, like why this book? What was the reason? Like what was the impetus for you that made you go, you know what I want to do? I want to take on the nice guy culture and write this book.
Oh man. Yeah, yeah. So I had been coming to a realization that the life that I was living in a kind of it was, looking back on it, was pretty tortured in my mind, mostly. And, and I came to a conclusion that either the gospel, because this can't be the abundant life that I was told
Mhm.
that I would get if I followed this script. So either the script is wrong or something's wrong with me.
Mm.
And I came to the conclusion that both are true. That I was really given a well-meaning script. It sounded good, but really it led to ruin, but it didn't lead to ruin right away. It's one of the most dangerous things, right?
Mm.
The most dangerous things are the long slope that just goes down gradually. And by the time you realize you're in trouble, well, boy, the journey's just so many things are already in place, right?
Yeah.
So, and then I had a behind the scenes workings with a pastor who was a big advocate of the nice guy Bible. He
Mm.
pretended to be a certain way, but I'll tell you that behind the scenes, ruthless. It was
Mm.
pretty shocking. There's that term in psychology, cognitive dissonance, right? Where you have a belief and put before you is information that's contrary to that belief. Well, it's shocking at first. I'm not shocked now, but it was pretty shocking back then. And I thought, wow, even the keepers of the script don't follow the script. They do it from the pulpit. but they
Right.
certainly don't do it behind the scenes.
Mhm.
So it made me think that this script is just faulty. It's just faulty. I was given a raw roadmap
Mhm.
as a young Christian man who didn't grow up in the church, transplant
Mhm.
in the church. My parents are actually pretty critical. I was actually criticized for going to church, right?
Mhm.
So I kind of fight for my own faith, so to speak. So anyway, and this also came after the amazing work of John Eldridge, Wild at
Mhm.
Heart.
Yeah.
I remember,
Yeah.
I remember getting a copy of this book and I'm reading it. And I kept looking at the spine. I'm thinking, this is published, this is a Christian publisher. And read it, look back at the spine. I think
Yes.
was it Tyndale? I can't remember now. I think it was Tyndale. Anyway, great book. And so it helped me. And then I thought, well, I really like this narrative. I wonder if I could add to it from my own experience. And so we did, and wrote a book. Yeah, you reminded me of a number of things. So I was searching for an agent, didn't have an agent at the time. And I think he's dead now. I had nothing to do with it, I promise. And
Not very
uh,
nice, Paul, that's for sure.
yeah. And I get a letter back from him saying, not only is your book unpublishable, it should never be published. That's what he said.
Oh my
And I still have the letter somewhere.
god.
That made me laugh. I thought, wow.
Amazing.
So anyway, I thought maybe I could add to this really cool thing that's taking
Yeah.
place. And glad to say that we did, it's in, I think it's in 5 or 8 different languages. And
Amazing.
spoke for Promise Keepers and Iron Sharpens Iron and other men's conferences, some international conferences
Yeah.
as well. A lot of letters and conversations of people being grateful. It's interesting, Nate. After a while, you recognize a pattern, and the people who this book really resonated with were sons of pastors.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, probably the number one group of people that I heard from, at least the ones that were, grateful, sons of pastors, because they were expected to have a persona, but not
Mm.
necessarily a personality, right? So a
Mm.
persona, I think the word comes from mask or something like that. And so they have to behave a certain way. And by the way, I'm not being critical of them.
Yeah.
We don't allow them to be normal young men. We just
Mhm.
don't. And
Mhm.
we need to change that. I think I've seen some changes in that since writing the book. So that's pretty cool. But many of them were expected to follow the script. And so they just thought I just need to be the nicest person.
Yeah.
And then what happens is the white hot searchlight of light is marriage. And so this lady who thinks that she married a really, God-fearing, gentle, quiet man, finds out, no, she married kind of a coward. And then not
Mhm.
only that, and by the way, I'm a recovering coward. I am not
Yeah.
throwing stones at anyone.
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm a recovering coward too. So they go into marriage, and this guy is not the person that they thought they married,
Yeah.
and the poor guy is in an incredible crisis because he wasn't allowed to have a personality. He formed a persona, and the persona is being broken like one of those masks made out of paper mache,
Mhm.
and they're gutted. They
Yeah.
are gutted, and this book really helped an uncountable number get their life back.
Mm. I can totally see it. Your connection, by the way, to Wild at Heart is really interesting because it had such a profound impact on my life many years ago when it came out too. And reading this one, no wonder, it's really fascinating to me that that was really kind of like the jump off for you of like, let me just add something to this conversation. And, why it moved me so much. It makes more sense when you say that. I'm like, okay, there you go.
Yeah, the original title of the book, and and
Wilder. Was it Wilder at Heart?
no, well, what was it? It was David Murrow thought that it started where Wild at Heart ended. He did a
Mm.
nice endorsement of it. I
Mhm.
don't know if that's completely true. John's work was just it changed the world. He cracked the earth with that book. But what really hit me is I was also part of the Genesis. I was reading an incredible book. It's out of print now. It's called The Humor of Christ by Elton Trueblood, I think.
Okay.
And he, a big thinker, really good writer. And he makes an argument that, and I tell you, to me, it's airtight. Unless we acknowledge that Jesus was being sarcastic, that Jesus was using hyperbole, some of the scriptures don't make sense.
Mm.
And it came to me where I thought, well, nice guys don't use humor at all. They're just not funny people. They're always very serious. And so here's Jesus. We call him the greatest teacher, but we never emphasize his humor, his hyperbole, sarcasm, all that's irony, all that and more. And that really hit me. And I thought, and True Blood's book is very thin. And I thought, what I'm going to do? I'm going to look more to the Bible and see what other parts where it doesn't make sense unless he's using hyperbole. I'll give you an example. What he says that he did not come for the healthy, but the sick. He's talking to the Pharisees.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's problematic. Our theology is shipwrecked if we take it on face value, right? Because on face value, there's two kinds of people. There are those who don't need a savior and those who do. So we have to admit he's being sarcastic. Oh, you guys are so wonderful. You don't need help. It just drips when you put it in that context. So I wanted to write a book about the humor.
I love it.
And it was just too esoteric. No publisher is like, oh, I don't know, Paul. But you know what? Might be able to do one of those in the future. That'd be interesting.
I would totally be on board for that.
Well, for example, when he talks about comparing a woman to a dog,
right?
Yeah. Do we really think if that is accurate?
Yeah,
if
that's a great
that's
point.
On face value, the other scriptures don't make sense.
Right. We have to really work hard to make that one make sense.
Well, and I've heard a number of sermons and they don't make sense. But when you realize he's basically saying, hey, I know people call you a dog.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to call you a dog, but I'm saying it as a way of sympathizing with you.
Mm-hmm.
I understand where you are.
Mm-hmm.
So those nuances, I know it gets lost in translation. I've had a number of pastors tell me that, but nonetheless, they better not get lost in translation. We got to think clearly about those things because we go off the rails when we don't.
Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying the show so far. And if you are, please do me a big favor and simply get engaged in a simple way. For you, that might be clicking the like button or maybe subscribing to the show. For others, it may be commenting on a show that really stands out to them, or maybe it's just copying the URL and texting it to a friend or pasting that into your social media, whatever it is. All of those things make a huge difference for us, and it helps us to reach more Christian men who are trying to live bigger and better lives. So thank you for being a listener and for being a part of this community and part of this show. We appreciate it more than you know, and we appreciate you getting engaged and helping us out. Thanks so much. Now back to the show. Yeah. I love the sarcasm of Jesus. I always tell people sarcasm is my love language. So like when I read the scriptures, it's like it is oozing of it. Like the one where he's
my spiritual gift.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. My spiritual gift, my love language. Like if there's no sarcasm, I'm reading it wrong because I see it all over the place. The one where he goes, what Jesus says to the guy, he says, "Good teacher, what must I do to be saved?" And he goes, "Why do you call me good?" And almost like he's winking at him, like, "I see what you're doing there." But to answer your question, and he moves on. Like I'm picturing Jesus just laughing, like just teasing a lot more than people understand. And again, maybe it's just my personality, but I see exactly what you're saying.
Well, it honestly doesn't make sense unless he's doing those things, which of course makes him so much bigger and more interesting,
absolutely
dynamic than he would be otherwise. We really do need to get rid of this two-dimensional Jesus that I know that I was given for too many years and see the real person.
Yeah.
Being, I should say.
Absolutely. Agreed. I was really moved reading the story of you growing up and a lot that you endured. And I don't know if you want to get into much of that or not, but maybe just a brief overview to give guys a sense of what it was like maybe and how it impacted you. I think you're moving into that direction when you talk about being married and what your woman thinks they're getting, and all of a sudden they're like, "Wait a minute, I got a train wreck. I had no idea. He seems so nice put together."
Yes, yeah. So childhood is, it was a mixed bag. It was really wonderful and awful at times. And in fact, what was it? A number of years ago, probably about 10 years ago, I don't know. I was on television or something, and someone asked me, "Hey, did you grow up in Reseda, California?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "I was in your home and I saw you as a baby. You were like, or infant rather, like 3 years old." And I said, "Well, what was the home like?" And she said, "There was so much fear in the
Mhm.
home that she couldn't wait to get out of it." So
Wow.
there was a pressure cooker. I hate to say. Again, there was love. It was wonderful in many ways, but really hard in other ways, as well. I had a parent who was pretty mercurial. So, okay, I'm joking. Okay. So she could be Mother Teresa at one time and then the devil's life coach the
Mm.
next, right? I mean, it was like, wow.
Wow.
So when you're really young, those are formative years and you learn to be hyper vigilant. You're always watching over your shoulder. You just don't know what's going to be, coming your way. Well, that stuff that takes a toll on you
Mhm.
and, not allowed to have an opinion. Just, you're told to shut up and more than that. And as long if it just disagreed with another person, well, you were wrong.
Mhm.
And then you bring that script into adult life and it's just well, okay, it works and it's awful.
Mhm. Right.
It works at first and it grinds you to pepper, really.
Yep.
So yeah, that's the upbringing up. And there was verbal, emotional abuse, physical abuse. It was pretty rough stuff there for a while. And then, yeah, you just kind of outgrow that stuff, or at least you think you do. And then you go on into adult life and boy, you do take some of that with you. I
Mhm.
am glad to say that, yeah, I don't even really think about that stuff anymore. And I've been, yeah, pretty much free from the effects of
Good.
it. And I'm really glad to say that in the writing of the book, it has set other people free from that as well. I will say this though, Nate, in regard to what you brought up there is that, we all come up with a script to follow in life.
Mhm.
We have these experiences and it's unofficial.
Mhm.
It's what we call a presupposition. It's one of the things we don't really think about, but it's part of our operating system. And I liken the nice guy deal to there was a slogan that if I live small, my troubles will be few. So
Right.
if I don't stand out, if I just get along to get along, that I will somehow magically do okay in life.
Mhm.
And you can see why you have a script like that at the time,
Yep.
but then you don't see how awful that script is. And then you go into a church setting, or I should say a church culture that reinforces those thoughts and those beliefs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I'm really grateful that you share it. I know that there are a lot of men that have similar stories, and again, just for guys as you listen to this, you got to read the book. Paul does an amazing job at kind of laying that out and seeing how your background really was impactful, and yet how God has redeemed so much of that story. Even just to hear you say, that you don't think much of that now today is it's pretty amazing. I mean, it was quite a story, and yeah, I'm grateful that God has done that work there. Um, I want to ask you this question. I think, like, you mentioned in the book, like being a nice guy can be detrimental to a man's faith and his personal growth. And I thought that was really kind of interesting. Can you talk about that? Like, how is that true?
Well, Jesus is boring. I mean, the nice Jesus is one boring dude. And so you're trying to be conformed to this boring image.
Mm,
And I think when you're younger, it's like, okay, well, this is right. I'm following the script. I'm doing good and I'm getting the attaboys. There's
mm,
going to be some grit in your gears the entire time, but hey, we all have grit in our gears. So you just kind of move on. And then after a while, he's just so stale and scripted, I guess. And there's just not enough there, in my opinion, and in the opinion of a whole lot of other people, to keep you interested and to
yeah.
keep you wanting to move forward. And then you find out that script just leads to it's a time bomb with a really long fuse. That's the
Mm,
problem. And then when
mhm,
it goes off at first, it doesn't really explode. It's like one of
mhm.
those things at the 4th of July starts off small, then it goes,
Right,
right? And so your
right.
life is just really messed up in a slow motion way.
Yeah. It's really fascinating. It makes me think we talk a lot about apathy in our ministry here with men. And it really like I'm just kind of in my head, I'm just kind of connecting the dots of some of this that when the presentation or the belief of Jesus is boring Jesus and you check off the salvation box, your fire insurance is in place, not a whole lot to it isn't more motivating to become more boring. And so you pursue like the manly things that we do, sex and money and power and whatever it might be. The connection makes a lot of sense, right? Like where do you see apathy and Christian nice guy connecting?
Yeah, well, it's huge, right? Because again, nice guys are their kryptonite is conflict. Can't
Mm,
stand conflict. They don't know how to do conflict, and when they do, it's often the fire breathing kind, right? It's that passive
right.
aggressive explosion type of thing. So it's just a recipe for apathy. Is if you're always going to be dodging certain things, you're not going to take a chance.
Mm,
You're going to play things safe constantly because to take a chance to disagree with someone is wrong. And so you can't do that. So you've got to stay in this very small life.
mm,
And again, it's just stifling. You just run out of oxygen.
mhm.
You run
Yeah.
out of oxygen in those things. It's tough. And I think it's one reason why we've seen, a good amount of men after a while just check out of
Yeah.
the faith. It's not for me, that's what
Yep.
they would say. And what I would say there is, yes, the script you were given isn't for
Mm.
you, and it shouldn't be for anyone for that matter. There's a whole better script out there.
Yeah, and so like let's speak to that a little bit. Like how do men recover from this? And what is the script? How do we find it? Like
Um,
you're talking about a script and we've kind of been presented a wrong one. Where is it? Like how do we find that?
well, I honestly would say I think of Wild at Heart, for example. If you're not
Mm,
familiar with that work, go back to it.
mhm,
Uh, the Number Christian Nice Guy has played its part as well. I say personally for me, that nice script is always dangerously reductionistic. It reduces these wonderful, large, this tapestry of life, part of it being mysterious.
mhm,
And heaven help us if we try to answer that mystery. These mysteries that have been around for a long time, and maybe we just let them be mysteries type of
mm,
thing, instead of always trying to answer and always have a kind of certainty about everything. Well, anyway, it leads to this dangerous reductionism. And for me, that was the thing that really cracked me.
mm,
And I just thought this faith just cannot be this is not life-giving. It exists, but it's not donating life in its various forms. And so for me, I had to get past the dangerous reductionism that I was given within my at least my evangelical experience. And one of the people who really helped to give me a much better script. Oh my goodness, Paul, come on. Timothy Keller.
mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
He it's almost like he was like in the room when he
Yeah.
wrote some of this stuff. It's almost
Yeah.
like, "Hey, Paul, I know you're going through this, so yeah, I'm going to write this for
Yeah,
you."
no
The
doubt.
late great Timothy Keller.
Yeah.
He of course, he writes about the dangers of reductionism, and I just
Mhm,
couldn't believe it when I read it. It's like, oh my
mhm.
goodness, this guy knows exactly what has happened to so many people.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was helpful to me.
No, so good. What what is the goal then? Help us figure out the idea of being a Christian man. So if the
Mhm.
goal isn't to be nice, and we've been kind of like given like a false, I don't know, goal set here. Like
Yeah,
how do we define
yeah.
what it actually looks like and pursue that?
I think we're really shooting for a definition of masculinity, right?
Yes.
That's really
Yes,
what
sir.
we're talking about. And what's interesting? The word is only like 150 years old.
Mm,
So when people talk about gender being a construct, there is some truth to that, right? It is a construct. Some of that is a construct. And at the same time, what is often happens is each society has certain parameters and expectation of men, of what a man should be. And the same for women. And so most David Gilmour, this great sociologist, not the lead guitarist, I think Pink Floyd. I think that's a different dude.
Different David Gilmour.
Yeah. Anyway, it has often been a combination of what religion wants from a man,
Mhm.
what the military wants from a man, and then what society at large wants from a man. So we have
Interesting.
these three components coming together. There's that male privilege, right? Where on any given day when you're a younger man, you might get drafted into a war,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
I remember being in Normandy recently and I asked, there's like 22,000 headstones there. And I said, how many are women? There's 4.
Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. And
Wow.
like, well, yeah, we get to go and fight in wars.
That's right.
Anyway, so it's an important thing for each society to answer those 3 questions. What do the 3 want? And it changes over time. In regard to, I don't want to make too much of how Jesus, we are to be conformed male and female to the image of Christ. And so I don't want to make too much of the fact that he's a guy because he's universal as well. But we can look to him for some like hints. I think that I think that when you look at young boys in particular, and you kind of look at their wiring before, frankly, they get perverted by, I'm not talking sexual perversion or anything
Mhm.
like that. It's when other people start telling them, oh,
Right.
well, that's wrong. You shouldn't think that. You shouldn't be that way. I think if well, studies bear this out. You talk to little boys and you talk to little girls. You ask them, what do you want to be when you get older?
Mhm.
And little boys more than girls, but of course girls do it too. I'm not trying to create this incredible dichotomy here, but there at the same time there are differences, right? And the boys will often say that they want to partake in what we call the martial occupations, and these are the tough tough things. They want to rescue, they want to help, they want to protect. Girls do too, but not to the same degree as boys
Mhm.
do. And I
Mhm.
think that is telling. I think that there's a wiring there that we guys are wired to want to protect, to want to take something and make it better. Women as well, but there tends to be, a greater desire, particularly on the tough side of
Yeah.
things. But then, criticisms come. And I remember one time I was done speaking at a men's conference and these 2 guys came up and they said, thank you. 'Cause I was talking about the importance of courage,
Mm.
redemptive courage, and how the world needs our courage. They need us to, there are people who either can't or won't stand up for themselves. They need someone to stand up for them.
Mhm.
And afterward, they came up to me and they said that they're both police officers. And there are people at their church who have told them, I just can't believe this, but actually I can, that they cannot understand how you can be a Christian and be a police officer
Mm.
because they might have to
Wow.
use force. Can you believe it, Nate? You might have to use force in this world.
Wow. Well, you
Uh,
did say you're in California, and I don't know if that makes a difference or not, but
I may have been to California
you may have
actually
been.
when speaking there, but can you believe it?
That's
That's what
amazing.
people actually think, that force
Yeah.
is bad.
Right.
That force is bad. Do you know the term blessed are the peacemakers? It's only used twice. Jesus uses it in James as well.
Mhm.
We have reason to believe that comes from the Roman military. That's a military term. Those who actively and aggressively bring peace about. That includes using force. Jesus says, blessed are the people who are
Mhm.
forceful for what is good.
Yeah.
But we certainly, unfortunately, too many of us don't think that's the case. So I would say ultimately, as for Christian men, it would be a faith that is infused with courage, not to be foolhardy, which is the opposite. Well, no, the opposite of courage is cowardice, listed in the Bible as a sin, Revelation
Mhm.
21:8.
Yeah.
When have you ever heard a sermon on the sin of cowardice?
No. No, but
Same,
you're right.
same here. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's infused with courage for the benefit of others.
Mhm.
The book you just showed up, No More Christian Nice Got Revisited. The word love appears more than 120 times. It really is about love. But I think for guys, and it's something that it captures, I call it a primal sap and I saw this when I was speaking at men's conferences a lot. I would talk about, and the Protectors, our anti-bullying organization. We work in both faith-based schools and public schools as well. We have two different programs. And I remember I would tell the story of a little girl with a baby blue blouse on, and she had raven black hair and big old glasses. And after student presentations, we've watched more than 10,000 kids apologize across the world during the presentation. So this beautiful little girl comes up to me, and normally a kid will step forward from the line and we talk and usually give them a hug. And this girl couldn't move forward, and her shoulders are shaking. And so I get on my knee and I say, well, sweetie, whisper it in my ear. What's going on? And there's a reason why I have counselors always when I speak, is she goes, the bullying includes sex, and she's in 4th grade. Now, she ain't ever escaping that on her own. It just isn't going to happen. She needs someone to stand up for her. So I would tell that story during men's conferences, and I noticed very small men look big. They're like, yes, I want to protect her. And so there is something about courage. There is something about that protective part of our personality.
Yeah.
That honestly, if it's not being used, we shrink.
Yep.
We shrink.
Yeah, man, there's so much more I would like to say or ask you about in this, but I want to give us some time. It's a great lead in to talk a little bit about the Protectors and tell us a little bit about that, because obviously, I mean, that story hits you right between the eyes there. And tell us about the good work there and what guys need to know or can know about this organization.
Yeah. So the Protectors, we work basically at any organization that needs help with bullying, summer camps, things like that, youth groups, but mostly within public schools and private schools as well. And those private schools can be faith-based or not faith-based. We have programs just for faith-based, and we have programs for values based. So we've been around for a while, and it was born out of No More Christian Nice Guy. And again, I saw how people behaved and how we really do want to help other people, but we need help. We need a script to follow, and we need other people standing by our side. We're much more courageous when we have someone standing by our side. And so we work with teachers. We do tons of teacher training. We'll be in New Braunfels, Texas, outside San Antonio next week, working with a wonderful school there. We have the teacher training. We have parent night or community night. Bullying is not a school problem. It's a cultural problem. We have to change culture. We need to change parenting. And then obviously we have these student presentations. I lost count how many students we've been before across the world, but we have watched more than 10,000 kids publicly apologize during the presentation. I'll tell them that today's a great day. If you've been bullying someone, you're going to have a chance to apologize. You're going to have a chance to come clean. I call it an apology, vitamin A. It's good for you and it's good for others. And there's no stones in my hands. I am not judging anyone. In fact, I talk about one story where I bullied a girl for this, my goodness, dumbest thing. Anyway, so I'm not judging them at all. I'm on their side. I'm there to help them. I'm there to help everyone. We've had some tremendous things happen. We've had schools that have to change their schedule afterward because the apologies just went on forever. They rippled through the room. We had this one school, Foothills Christian School, Glendora, California, run by some great people. Bo, I think Bo is stepping down now, but he's been the head of that school for a long time. And they had to do breakout sessions throughout the entire cafeteria. They went on for like 2 hours. It was really pretty stunning, what happened there. We've had teachers apologize to teachers in front of everyone. We've forwarded some bully sides. I've had more than one kid come up to me afterward and said they're going to hand a note to their teacher or saying they're going to take their lives due to bullying. But because of the event, the presentation, the kids apologized to them. So it really fundamentally changed, their life. And by the way, just because they apologize doesn't mean they're not going to do it again. We're not that naive. So of course, in those cases, we have a counselor come in. Sometimes there's a police officer. We bring them in to give that kid the help that they need, not just now, but in the future too, because oftentimes when it comes to these high profile cases where kids take their lives and they say it's due to bullying, it's a huge part. But also too, there's usually one, if not two, very dramatic family experiences in the last few years. So it's usually not just one thing. It's a number of things that come together. So, and then too, we have schools each year that come to us for help. We've already had 3 this year that contacted us a few months ago. We need your help. They don't have anything close to a budget. So we're looking for sponsors. We need people who will step up, sponsor a school, save a life. And if we don't save a life physically, we are saving lives psychologically and spiritually. We have to think that bullying makes us stronger. Statistically, that isn't true. It can, but it's absolutely more likely if it's serial bullying to harm that person down the road, sometimes for the rest of their lives, especially girls. It could drive them into a fear of public places, agoraphobia rather. And so we really need to help them now to battle this issue, because it can ruin someone's life for the rest of their life. So we're looking for sponsors that will help sponsor a school and just save countless lives.
Is it a one-off event that's kind of like with follow-up of training? Is that kind of what you're describing? Is that how that works? Do you go in and do a one-day event? How does that look?
It's 1 day or 2 days where all the training takes place.
Okay.
And then we leave the school with a curriculum that gets implemented anytime during the school year that they want. And then for schools that really get this and they really want to be part of a solution, there is what we call a Protectors Freedom Council. And it is basically a club against bullying. And so they become mini experts in bullying. And then they have their own agenda where they really can work side by side with the administration to diminish bullying now and then for generations to come.
Very cool. Very cool. It really, as we wrap up here, just kind of makes me think, when a man gets rid of the CNG in his life and he's no longer that Christian nice guy, he finds mission. And you'd mentioned that earlier with Jesus, that what you find when you read Mark 1-3 wasn't a nice guy, but a mission driven, kingdom focused man who had limited time and stuff to do. And he was far from bored. And yet it's so interesting that we've taken on this boredom, Jesus, in our lives, and we want mission. And so what a cool mission that you're on to write and to serve and to help in this way, Paul. It's super cool.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. Great to meet you.
So great to meet you. So great to meet you. And guys, as you listen to this again, I told you this was going to be a real treat. So grateful for Paul jumping on here. If you like this, will you please share information about the Protectors? And Paul, before you go, can you tell everybody, how can they connect with you? How can they learn more about Protectors, your book, things like that, or even just social media? I don't know if you do any of that yet, but any of those ways.
Yeah. Just go to theprotectors.org and you can contact me from there. You can learn all about our stuff, download some materials, do a web inquiry if you're interested in us coming to your school. And then my email is paul@theprotectors.org.
paul@theprotectors.org. All right. Well, we'll make sure we list all of those in the show notes. But Paul, such great work. Can't recommend No More Christian Nice Guy any higher. Obviously, really curious to check out the Protectors. What a great cause. What a great thing for men. And I know I'm challenged thinking about our conversation today to make sure I'm reading the Bible with the perspective of what's real and what was true of Jesus. And really just, again, our mission here is to become the men that God meant for us to be. And that's men on mission. That's men with courage. That's men with strength for the sake of others, and really these things that we've talked about. So again, thanks for your work, Paul, with that. Thanks for joining us. Guys, thanks for listening to the show. We look forward to seeing you in the next episode, and we'll talk to you again soon. Hey guys, thanks so much for being here today and listening to the show. Please be sure to head over to the website at getinthefight.club. And before you go, if you haven't already, please subscribe, click the like button, and leave us a positive 5-star review. It makes a huge difference whenever you do. Have a great day. Go get in the fight.